meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook last week, Apple just announced its largest ever commitment to American jobs and industry, with plans to spend and invest more than $500 billion in America over the next 4 years. Over the course of the current plans to hire around 20,000 new workers, creating high-paying jobs right here in America. And the investment isn't limited to one specific region of our country. Apple teams and facilities will expand all over our country in Arizona, California, Iowa, Nevada, North Carolina, Michigan, or Texas, and Washington. With President Trump in charge, America is open for business. Apple CEO Tim Cook said it best in the company's announcement: "We are bullish on the future of American innovation." On top of this incredible Apple announcement, President Trump already announced more than $1 trillion in pledged investments into the United States. And on another important note that the American people entrusted President Trump to fulfill, this administration's efforts to seal the border continue to prove extraordinarily successful. In President Trump's first month back in office alone, illegal border crossings hit lows not seen in decades, down 94% over the past year, while interior arrests are up 134%. And this past Saturday, this is a significant statistic that I wanted to share with all of you, there were only 220 illegal border crossings on Saturday. This is a year low. Think in comparison to the amount of illegal border crossings we saw under the previous administration. Fox recently reported that a San Diego migrant shelter is closing its doors after saying they have not received new asylum-seeking families or individuals since January 20th. We all know what happened on January 20th, don't we? And yesterday, New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced that the massive Roosevelt Hotel migrant shelter in Manhattan will shut down in the next few months. We're also seeing a reverse migration effect. There are now verified reports from the Associated Press of migrants abandoning their journey to the United States and heading back home. This is the first time the Border Patrol has received these reports since 2020, during President Trump's first term. The returning migrants claimed in interviews that the new heavy security posture adopted by the Trump administration return to the countries of their origin. Overall, the American people continue to overwhelmingly give President Trump very positive remarks. Nearly every one of President's policy initiatives are receiving strong majority support, and I have noted that in every briefing since inauguration. 1% of Americans support deporting illegal migrant criminals from our nation's interior. 76% of Americans support a full-scale investigation to find and eliminate fraud and waste in government expenditures. Again, poll, a very legitimate pollster. 76% of 69 Americans support President Trump's common sense efforts to ban women's sports. As you all know, we celebrated that executive order at the White House a couple of weeks ago. 60 president's efforts to eliminate all the hiring and awarding of government contracts, which is another pledge that, and 61% of Americans, vast majority, support the president's plan for reciprocal tariffs to ensure that other countries are treating us the way we have. Despite what many Democrats and media members want you to believe, the Trump agenda is not only necessary, but it is overwhelmingly popular. Why? Because it's driven by common sense. As you all saw yesterday, a federal judge denied the Associated Press's emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against myself, our Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich, and our Chief of Staff Susie Wiles for our decision to remove the Associated Press from the White House press pool for certain and special events. The judge's ruling, upholding our decision to deny the Associated Press such privileged access, reinforces the truth. And it reiterates what I said last week when that suit was filed. Asking the President of the United States questions in limited spaces, such as the Oval Office in Air Force One, is a privilege that unfortunately has only been granted to a few. It is not a legal right for all. The Trump administration has already proven to be the most transparent ever, and this president the most accessible in history. This is evidenced by President Trump's daily press conferences in the Oval Office, where he takes many questions from the journalists who have the honor and privilege of standing before the beautiful Resolute desk. The president and this entire White House are committed to ensure continue to receive this same level of historic transparency and visibility. In fact, we want to double down and give even greater access to the American people. We want more outlets and new outlets to have a chance to take part in the press pool, to cover this administration's unprecedented achievements up close, front and center. As you all know, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility. Just like we added a new media seat in this briefing room, legacy media outlets who have been here for years will still participate in the pool, but new voices are going to be welcomed in as well. As part of these changes, we will continue the rotation of major television networks to the president's remarks are heard far and wide around this world. We will add additional streaming services which reach different audiences, traditional cable and broadcast. This is the ever-changing landscape of the media in the United States today. We will continue to rotate a print pooler who has the great responsibility of quickly transcribing the president's remarks and disseminating them to the rest of the world. And we will add outlets to the print pool rotation who have long been denied the privilege to partake in this experience during this White House beat. We will continue to rotate a radio pooler and add other radio hosts who have been denied access, especially local radio hosts who serve as the heartbeat of our country. And we will add additional outlets and reporters who are well suited to cover the news of the day and ask substantive questions of the president depending on the news he is making on that given day. This administration is shaking up Washington in more ways than one. That's what we were elected to do. As I have said since the first day behind this podium, it's beyond time that the White House press operation reflects the media habits of the American people in 2025, not 1925. A select group of DC-based journalists should no longer have a monopoly over the privilege of press access at the White House. All journalists, outlets, and voices deserve a seat at this highly coveted table. So by deciding which outlets make up the limited press pool on a day-to-day basis, the White House will be restoring power to people who President Trump was elected to serve. So in that note, in our new media seat today, we have Shelby Talcott, who is a White House reporter for Semafor. In 2022, Semafor launched as a global digital news platform with the aim of bringing meaningful innovations to the news industry. Today, they have nearly 1 million newsletter subscribers spanning 11 separate editions. With that, Shelby, I will take your questions.
Thanks, Caroline. I've got two for you. One on foreign policy. Over the weekend, the president's special missions envoy, Rick Grenell, was talking about Venezuela, and he said that the president isn't someone who wants regime change. Other administration officials have made clear that they don't see Maduro as the rightful leader. What is this administration's policy on a new government in Venezuela?
I think the president has made his position on Venezuela quite clear. He stands in opposition to the Maduro regime, and Secretary Rubio has spoken on this extensively as well.
Doge. Last night, Elon Musk said that a failure to respond a second time will result in termination. Will there be additional rounds of the what did you do this week email from Doge to federal workers, and what's the guidance on the federal workers who've been instructed by their agencies not to reply?
So a couple of things on this. First of all, let's just take a step back and talk about this idea. The president sent out a truth last weekend to Elon Musk saying he loves everything Elon is doing, and he wants him to be even more aggressive because Doge thus far has proven incredibly successful in making our government more efficient. And so Elon and Doge came up with this idea. Elon has at his private companies. It has proven successful. Now management is asking, all this administration President Trump is asking, is for federal workers live off of the American taxpayers' dime to send 5 points of what they have done in the previous week. That is all we are asking for. And so the Office of Personnel and Management sent out additional guidance last night. Those responses should be directed to agency leadership, and the president defers to his cabinet secretaries, who he's obviously entrusted to pursue the guidance relative to their specific workforce. And for some of the agencies that you've seen who have said, please don't send these emails, it's in best interest for that specific agency. The president supports that. And let me be very clear, the president and Elon, his entire cabinet are working as one unified team, and they are implementing these very common sense solutions. You're welcome. Jackie.
Thank you. One follow-up on that question. So about the deadline, Alina Habba said that you have until tonight. Elon Musk said a failure to respond would result in termination. So is that a real deadline? Should federal workers be looking to that guidance, or should they be looking to the agency heads? Like, what is the actual deadline?
So again, the agency heads will determine the best practices for their employees at their specific agencies. Again, this was an idea that Elon come up with. Doge worked with OPM to actually implement the idea, and the secretaries are responsible for their specific workforce. And this is true of the hirings and the firings that have taken place. And we workers, unless your agency has dictated you not to respond to this email. In fact, I can announce that we've had more than 1 million workers who have chosen to participate in this very simple task of, again, sending 5 bullet points to your direct supervisor or manager, CCing OPM. I actually participated in myself. It took me about a minute and a half to think of 5 things I did last week. I do 5 things in about 10 minutes, and all federal workers should be working at the same pace that President Trump is working and moving. We have a country to save, and we want this federal government to be responsive to the needs of the American people who re-elected this president to historic massive reform, and that's what the intention of this.
Though, because Elon Musk also said a reason that they wanted this 5 things email was just to see if people are actually alive. Citing that there are some federal workers who might even be alive. So meantime, NBC is reporting that these are going to go into an AI generator to evaluate whether these jobs are necessary. So is it just to people are actually working, or is it an effort to maybe cut some of those jobs?
I have not seen that NBC News report, and I haven't heard that from Doge or from Elon himself. Again, this is to ensure that federal workers are not ripping off, that they are showing up to the office and that they are doing their jobs. That's what the American people expect, and it's a very simple task to complete. I did it myself, and I was more than happy to do it because I'm very grateful that I am serving the American people on the American taxpayers' dime.
Do you think Doge should hire a spokesperson just so that Elon Musk doesn't put out tweets that then confuse federal workers?
Are my press briefings not good enough for you, Jackie? John.
Carolyn, thank you. In the ruling by Judge Fadden yesterday, who dismissed the lawsuit that AP brought against yourself and your team members here, President Trump, in there he said, why not just do away with the entire White House Association along with it, because essentially they have no authority, they just usurped it. What is your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, John, it's great to see you. And you are one of those individuals who has you're on a streaming platform that hundreds of thousands of people tune into every day. So it's great to see you in the briefing room. I did address that actually in my opening remarks by announcing that the White House press team in this administration will determine who gets to enjoy the very privileged and limited access in spaces such as Air Force One and the Oval Office. There are, as you know, look at this room, hundreds of journalists who show up to this building every single day and are not granted that luxury of flying on Air Force One and asking the President of the United States questions. And so we want to ensure, again, everyone has a seat at that highly coveted table, but alas, who have been doing this for quite some time and have invested resources into covering the White House, their spots will remain, just like they have in this briefing room as well. Sure. Steve.
Could you give us an update on the negotiations around the Ukraine minerals deal, and when is President Zelensky going to come visit?
So the president talked at length about this yesterday, the critical minerals deal with President Macron, and in the more than hour-long press conference he gave you in the Oval Office himself. There hasn't been significant updates since the president's remarks last night, but that this deal is signed. He expects Kyiv to sign a deal. This is to recoup American tax dollars that have been funding Ukraine's national defense, and it's also great for the Ukrainian people who have been put through hell because of this war. And it will create a lasting economic partnership as Ukraine because of this brutal war.
And just to follow, is Steve Witkoff delayed his trip to the Middle East so he can concentrate on this minerals deal?
I don't want to comment on Mr. Witkoff's travel plans or read anything out just for obvious reasons, but he, remains very much working. That may secure this deal with Russia and Ukraine alongside Secretary Rubio and Secretary Bessent, General Keith Kellogg. He's also working very hard to secure a peace deal in the Middle East as well. So God bless him, and he's working alongside the president every single day.
Thanks, Caroline. The president's executive order creating a DOJ administrator. Who is the DOJ administrator?
So the president tasked Elon Musk to oversee the DOJ. There are career officials and there are political appointees who are helping run DOJ on a day-to-day basis. There are also individuals who have onboarded as political appointees at every agency across the board to work alongside President Trump's cabinet to find and identify waste, fraud, and abuse, and they are working on an effort every day.
So is Elon
Reagan.
Musk the administrator?
Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have one on the border wall and one on the DHS investigation.
Sure.
First on the border wall, border wall construction has recently under contracts awarded under Trump's first term. Is the president looking to secure new? How is he defining success in terms of border wall construction this administration?
The border wall is a signature promise of President Trump's campaign. He talked about it way back in 2015, 2016, and people laughed at him for bringing up this idea. It's proven to be not only an idea that he delivered on in his first term and continues to deliver on in his second term, but it's also proven to be highly effective. In fact, we know where there were parts of President Trump's border wall built and standing under the previous administration, illegal border crossings dropped 87% where there was a border wall. So the wall is an incredible deterrent factor for illegal migrant caravans. The president is committed to the continuation of the construction of the wall. And the previous administration actually sold off the resources that the Trump administration secured to build the wall. And that's an egregious misuse of the American taxpayers' money. They just let those resources rot on the southern border. They actually sold them for pennies on the dollar. So this administration, DHS and ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and Tom Homan and all of the great people who are working on this effort are committed to continuing the construction of President Trump's border wall.
Investigation into people who might be leaking within the administration. The White House released the names of the individuals that DHS Secretary Noem said were caught leaking details of the ICE raid. And can you share leakers have been caught so far and what age they were a part of?
I would defer you to DHS on the leakers that they have identified, but I know the president and this White House commend Secretary Noem for launching an internal investigation to identify those leakers because it's unacceptable for career bureaucrats being in the way of the will of the American people and enacting President Trump's agenda. If they don't want to adhere to the will of the 77 million Americans who reelected President Trump, then they should go find another job. And if they continue to leak information, especially information that is critical to protecting Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who are out there, not many people are willing to do, putting their lives on the line to national security, then those individuals absolutely should be fired, and this administration is committed to finding them.
Caroline, two questions for you. One related to Mobay, the other to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I wanted to get a response to some Washington Post reporting of the migrant at Guantanamo Bay for the last 2 weeks. They told the Post they were rarely let outside